and I'll just admit people as they come.
So I was waiting on Taylor because she's the one that requested this. This is all for Taylor. No. I hope all of you get something. So we're going to be talking about narcissistic personality disorder, which the definition is it's a mental health disorder characterized by a lifelong pattern of exaggerated feelings of self-importance, an excessive need for admiration, and a diminished ability to empathize with others' feelings. So the DSM-5, the diagnostic tool that we use to diagnose mental health issues, gives us five, at least five. They have to have at least five of these following symptoms to be diagnosed. So, you know, and I'm going to talk in a few minutes about alcoholism and how it is connected to narcissism. That if you've ever lived with someone that, or have lived around someone that is a narcissist, it wears you out. It will wear you completely out. So I want to have time to talk about family members, children, spouses who live with narcissists. And because the deal is they have not, and I hate to report this to any of you that might be a narcissist or have lived with a narcissist, there's no measurable recovery rate. That's sad, isn't it? In most personality disorders, people can recover. You know, you get diagnosed, you get a treatment plan, and you follow the treatment plan, and you're going to get better. You're going to get better. You know, not so with narcissists, because the pattern has shown is, you know, they may be confronted, they may agree to go to a therapist that they don't like because you probably picked them out, and they won't stay. They will not stay in therapy because they know more than the therapist does. It is a sad personality disorder to have. And the sad part is they don't know that they have it. That's the sad part of narcissism. They do not think they have it. They think you are the problem. And if you would straighten up, life would be better. And that means everyone. That means people they're in school with when they're younger. And it usually starts and it can start in teenage years, usually young adult life. And so it can start with their peers. You know, they feel better then. They look down on people. It is a sad mental disorder to have. So I want to go over the five elements that really describe, and people have to have at least five of these to really be diagnosed with narcissism. So one of them is a grand sense of self-importance. And that's number one, a grand sense of self-importance. They think they're all of that and something else. The second one is preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. They live in a fantasy and they feel that they deserve all of this. And they just keep waiting for the world to give it to them. They keep waiting for someone to give them the power, the success, the brilliance, the beauty, the ideal love, you know. It is a fantasy that they live in. Number three, I like this because Pia Melody talks about people who want to feel special. And she never called it narcissism, but she talks quite a bit about people who have the need to be special. So that's number three, believing that they are special and unique and can only be understood by or should associate with other special people of high status. So this is a sad diagnosis, folks. Four, requiring excessive admiration, must be bragged on to an extent for those who love them or are around them. They must hear compliments constantly. Number 5, I said 5, there's 9 of these. Number 5 is a sense of entitlement with expectations of especially favorable treatment of automatic complications with the expectation. They have expectations with everything. And the expectation is that they are entitled. Have you ever been around a person that is entitled? That they feel like that life needs to treat them a little special and a little different. So number 6, this is one of the things that stuck out to me. Taking advantage of others, particularly those that they love the most, taking advantage of others to achieve their own good. I think that sticks out to family members, because when you live with someone that is a narcissist, they only have eyes for themselves. So 7, lacking empathy, unwilling to recognize or identify with feelings and needs of others. Have you ever been around someone that if you try to talk about something about yourself, they will give you one-upment? They won't even let you finish because, this is not about making them bad, awful, and wrong people. This is a diagnosable mental health disorder. And it's a sad one. It is a sad one. And they have very few feelings for others, even their own children at times. Now they can, when they have children, kind of get, out of their diagnosis slightly. But if the children get more attention, even a newborn baby coming home from the hospital, for a narcissistic father, if that baby gets more attention than he does, he'll get mad at the mother. This is how self-centered narcissist is. And by the way, statistically, there's more men who have this diagnosis than there are women. Women can have it, of course, but men have the greater number. Number 8, often being envious of others or believing that they're either envious of others or they believe that others are envious of them. And they crave that others are envious of them. They want people to be envious of them. Or they're envious of other people and what they have and their status in life. Number 9, showing arrogant, haughty behavior or attitudes. Narcissistic personality disorder usually develop either in early youth or early adulthood. I've already said that. Generally, the symptoms of narcissistic personality also impairs the person's psychological ability to function socially, either at work, school, or in relationships, because they always step up and take that, where they're up here looking down on someone else. And, children can pick that up. Teenagers can pick that up in other kids. And, what they do, if they have or around someone that is a narcissist, they quit being around them. So what a narcissist will do is most likely, if they don't get their way or attention, or respond with anger or some form of aggressiveness when presented with rejection. And because they are very sensitive to perceived criticism, they will make up that they're being criticized. I don't care what you say to them. When it goes through their brain, it is you've criticized them and they'll get angry about it. People with narcissistic personality are prone, and I think this can be a good thing. They're prone to feelings of shame. They have a lot of shame, apparently, about their behavior, but inability to change it. and the humiliation that they must suffer, and the feelings of worthlessness over minor incidents of daily life, and impaired personal sights. So there is something in there that makes them feel some kind of shame of their behavior. And, I would think if I was working with a narcissist, I would work with the shame factor, but anyway, so although there's no known in research, there's no known specific reasons for narcissistic behavior, that what it does tend to can run in families. It can be hereditary in some way. They've done some research on it, but they can't get enough healthy people. I mean, they really are at a standstill with the research for narcissism and really what to do about it. And in what, they do believe that in some there can be impaired brain dysfunction, but mostly what they see is where narcissism comes from is being from, and I hate this because I'm a parent and y'all are parents, a lot of y'all are parents. It goes back to parenting a lot of times. It's, Theo calls that one, when a child is put on a pedestal, they're we call it being falsely empowered. And that is what, when you are raised by parents who give compliments all the time to the child and never balances it out with, these are things you might want to look at to work on. There is no human on the face of the earth that's perfect. But when you're raised by parents that never call attention to anything that you do wrong, that just build you up and brag on you, and I hate to say it because I'm a mother, it usually comes from moms. And that usually comes from a mom that doesn't have a good relationship with her husband. And so in working with a narcissist, and I have worked with some because I've worked with addicts. And I'm going to talk about how alcoholics, addicts, or any addict of any sort, how we are eat up with self-centeredness. That is the center of the addict's problem, is ourselves. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. So like I said, there is no real research to show the reason or the cause of narcissism behavior. But one of the big ones is, and they have gathered some information about this, is having controlling parents and putting the child on a pedestal and not seeing anything that they do wrong. And what human being, any of us, children, adults, old people, I mean, we're fallible human beings. We make mistakes, but we're not mistakes. But when you're raised by a parent that puts you up on a pedestal and brags on you all the time, after a while, now some kids, it will roll right off of their back. If that kid has, something going on inside their brain and in their heart that's healthy, I don't care how much parents brag on them or their mother, it'll roll off of their back because they know who they are. They know who they are. And this won't stick with most children. But someone that's destined to be a narcissist believes every good thing they hear. And it just builds them up to be better than anyone else that they come in contact with. So, and this is sad to say, but really there's no treatment guidelines for people with narcissistic personality disorders, because the fact of the matter is that they don't think they have a problem. The ones who do show up for treatment or for therapists is because of the family or the spouse threatening, if you don't get some help, I'm leaving. And so, they're usually pushed there. They don't go on their own will. And like I said a while ago, nothing will apply to them. I don't care what what direction the therapist tries to take them in. Well, no, that's not me. I don't do that. I don't do. The denial is so strong, with a narcissistic personality disorder person, and denial is don't even know I'm lying. It is truth for them. It is really truth for a narcissist that they think that they're all of that and something else. I mean, their ego is completely over the top. But on the inside, if they can ever get in there, if ever any professional can get in there, they do carry some shame. And if I was working with a narcissist, that's where I'd go. I would help them see, where the shame is coming from. Is it coming from their childhood? Is it coming from their own behavior or whatever? So I want to talk about how the similarities between narcissists and addicts that are not in recovery. I mean, we know an untreated alcoholic, addict, eating disorder person, you name the addiction, we are self-centered. We are all about ourselves. And that's narcissistic behavior. Now, so how the narcissistic, the tendencies in alcoholics to have narcissistic behavior, the first thing is they deny the truth about themselves and their problem. Just like a narcissist denies that they have that syndrome. And it's a trait to avoid facing the truth. I've never worked with an alcoholic myself that wasn't in denial. And until they pass that denial, and they'll come to treatment in denial. They'll say, well, I'm here because the court set me, or I'm here because my wife's about to leave me, or I'm here for so-and-so. But if they can ever hear enough information about their disease and get past the denial and admit, hey, I've got this, then many of your alcoholics, because they do want to get better, in recovery, alcoholics, drug addicts, eating disorder people, we are driven, our disease is a self-centered disease. And when we're in it, I had a house full of kids, but, a good husband. But when I was into my eating disorder, all I could think about was the food and how to get it, how to get rid of it, where to hide it. And getting up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and eating up my kids' school lunch food, and then having to get out before they got up and go to a little grocery store and get something to put in their lunch. That is self-centeredness, folks. It's narcissistic behavior. I would rather have the food to make myself feel better than to keep it in order to put my kids' lunches. That's what any disease does. It's all about ourselves and how we can get the substance, get it quick, get it in, so it will ease the pain of living, and then we can make our amends later. So we usually don't to recover. So there is a parallel with narcissistic personality disorder and addicts. And the denial is one of the biggest things, denying that they have a problem. And the second one is the struggle to take responsibility for their actions. Addicts, we've worked with many addicts that come here because not that they want to go to treatment. It's the last house on the block. They're here because of wives. They're here because of husbands. They're here because of the law. Many of them get here because it's either jail or shades of hope. And sometimes after they get here, they wish they'd chosen jail because this is not an easy treatment center to go through. But a lot of your addicts do not suit up and show up for treatment just because they want recovery. It's usually due to someone else's, seeing the truth. And, usually, and family members will not until they get help themselves. They will not. And this is the part that family plays in it. So they struggle to take responsibility for the actions. And then alcoholics, untreated alcoholics, hang on to entitlement. There are treatment centers throughout the United States, all the world, that are fabulous. They are like the best spas in the world. You can go in, you can choose the thickness of your comforter, you can pick your own pillows, you can take your phone. They make it so easy to come to treatment. If you want to go to group, you can go to group. If you don't want to, you can go to sleep, or you can go have a massage. It's not like that at Shades of Hope. That's why we don't have people beating down the doors to get here, because they've heard our reputation. If their insurance will pay for one of those wonderful spa-like treatment centers, that's where they go. And I suspect some of them get sober. I'm not saying they don't all, relapse, but it's, addicts are they just so want their way. That word is entitlement. I know when I went to treatment for my eating disorder, there was only 2 of us there. It was a new unit and a dingy psychiatric, dirty psychiatric unit. And it was in downtown West Hollywood, which was a bad part of town. Well, I was a walker. I had walked a lot. Well, I got on them. I wanted to walk. I wore them nuts wanting to walk. And I felt entitled. I was paying for that treatment. My insurance was. And I needed to be able to exercise and go walk. So I'd walk it up and down the stairs, up and down the stairs. But I boarded them so much that they finally figured out they could take me and the other woman out to a high school track deal and let us walk. Well, I got my way. If I had a person like that in treatment, probably the last thing I'd let them do is walk, because as addicts, we don't know how to take the word no. We want our way about everything. And that is how a narcissist is. They do not understand the word no. And that's why, they don't have just a whole lot of people grouped up around it. A lot of narcissists are very lonely people. Okay, another way that narcissism relates to alcoholism is they act out in spite of others. An untreated addict, I don't care how much the family begs, the children begs, whatever, for them to quit drinking or drugging or whatever, until they're ready, it doesn't matter. They are going to use. Those of us that, with bulimia or any eating disorder, I don't know that there was enough people in the world to stop me from doing what I wanted to do with an eating disorder until I got ready, until I found help. Otherwise, I was driven by the eating disorder. I had to do it. I had to do it often to make myself feel better. And I think that's true for most addicts. And guess what? How there's number 5, how narcissists are similar to addicts is addicts can be very manipulative, just like a narcissistic person. They can be very manipulative. And y'all know, because you've done it yourself, and I've done it. People in treatment will try to manipulate their way into whatever they want. We, as addicts, we want what we want when we want it, just like a narcissist. Number 6, they are addicts and narcissists are generally insecure and have low self-esteem. This is usually the core of narcissistic personality disorder. And they're the same traits of alcoholism. at the very core. That's why that one word stuck out to me, the shame. And I think that's a good thing if a narcissist can feel a little shame about their behavior. I would think there might be some hope for some change. So, I want to talk a little bit about, and I'm not going to spend all this time, but I do want to talk a little bit about how when my husband's first 5 or 6 years he was sober, for years they had this big conference over Labor Day here at our Civic Center. It was a huge conference. People would come from all over everywhere. We'd have a huge crowd. And my husband and I served on the speaker committee for many, many years. So the first year we, got a list of these circuit speakers, and there's circuit speakers that live other places and come in, and that's all they do is they speak on the circuit, and they're good speakers. And we invited this gentleman that all the committee agreed to have him. I'm not going to tell you his name because if you're have been in AA any time at all, you know him. He's well known in the field, and he's done some good for alcoholics. And I'm not putting the man down, but when I think of a narcissist, I think of this man. So he'd been sober many years. We invited him to come here for the conference. Now, what I envisioned, and we were early in the program, I'd been in Al-Anon that time. I mean, by that time for about 20 years. My husband had about 5 years sobriety. And what I had envisioned was long-term recovering alcoholics had grace, they had forgiveness, they had a demeanor of gentleness about them. Not this man. Anyway, we picked him up at the airport, and his luggage didn't come in. And we stood there and watched that man throw the biggest hysterical, cussing, screaming fit at this little attendant in our small airport. Now, that is a man that had many years of recovery from alcoholism and was going to go speak. He was the keynote speaker to tell people how he recovered. And I thought, I don't want anything he has. Nothing, zero. So that was the first time. And all of that behavior, that self-centered behavior, I mean, he wanted us to do the food a certain way and bring it to him a certain way. The water, I've worked on that committee for years and never had anybody like that. So fast forward 5 years later, we were having like a reunion deal, inviting the same people back. And we invited him back. He had not changed. And the last day of the conference, something happened to his hotel room, and he didn't have a room, and it was full at the hotel. So we had a big house, and guess who? My husband volunteered our house for him to come spend the last night. He was the most arrogant SOB to my children and in our home of anybody I've ever seen. And then when he left and we got our telephone bill, that's years ago, he had run up about a $200 phone bill on our phone. Now he might not drink the drug alcohol and might not have for years and did good work for alcoholics, but he had zero of what I wanted. And that is what I would call a narcissistic recovering alcoholic. He may be recovering from alcoholism, but I think he was a dyed-in-the-wool narcissist. And I know him, and he hasn't changed. But I will give you this. He has helped a lot of alcoholics stay sober. In his arrogance, he was very demanding, and he ruled his sponsorees by an iron hand. But anyway, nevertheless, that is when I could name you several alcoholics in recovery that had that narcissistic personality. Most alcoholics, when they get in recovery and they work those 12 steps and they follow the directions and they work with the sponsor and they take a good first, second, and third step, and they believe, they have a suspicion that God can and will change their life. If they work all of those 12 steps and then start living the program, they recover, and they're different people altogether. You could hardly tell any resemblance to the way they lived before and the way that they live in recovery. But if you've got a narcissist in recovery from an addiction, you still have a narcissist. So I'll get off of that one. Okay, so I want to give you some healing steps if you have suffered from any narcissistic abuse. When you live with a narcissist, many times they are not addicts. They are just sick with a personality disorder. You almost want to say, well, drink, so maybe you'll feel better. But anyway, many of your narcissists are not addicts. Some of your addicts are narcissists. So, okay. So, narcissistic behavior toward families, wives, spouses, children, becomes a psychological warfare. A lot of times, sometimes it will not be physical, but it's psychological. They will absolutely, they lie, they do a lot of gaslighting, manipulation, threats. They'll threaten the family, they'll threaten the spouse if they leave. And then they have other forms, any form of controlling behavior that you can think of, a narcissist will have. Now, when they marry, let's say it's a man, and they marry someone that maybe she doesn't recognize this, the narcissist. She thinks she's marrying a strong man or whatever, but it shows up early in the marriage. And unless that spouse has some really good, heavy core beliefs about themselves, they'll get sucked up into this psychological abuse. And the longer you stay in it, the crazier the spouse and the family gets. So there's 7 things to do, ideas to do to take care of yourself. One thing, get to safety. Now, like I said, they may not be physically abusive, or they may. But most of the time, it's that psychological, where you think you're the crazy one, and they convince you there's something wrong with you. When that happens, get to safety. Find a safe place. Number 2, stabilize your life and your living situation, your living condition. Find your own place to live. Get stabilized where you can have a life and have healthy living conditions for you and your children. Another thing is get professional help to process the trauma of living with a narcissist. Now, the thing about it, and this is the same thing that happens to family members of addicts, alcoholics. If we happen to, and I'm a double winner, I'm an alcoholic, and I'm also a family member of many alcoholics. So that makes me a double winner or a 2-time loser. Double winner in recovery, 2-time loser in the disease. But anyway, it is when you've been lived in severe psychological trauma for so many years, you get to expect it. You think it is about you, but once you can pull out of it, get enough self-esteem on board to pull out of it, and then get professional help and process the trauma. Get help for yourself and for your children to process the trauma, because regardless, I don't know how long you have lived with a narcissist, but if you've lived with a narcissist more than a week, you have experienced psychological trauma, because that's all they know to do. They know to put people down, not affirm them, be all of that and something else. For a narcissist, it's all about them, all about them. And so another thing with the therapist, process the grief and the loss, because when you have a coupleship, you went into that coupleship with stars in your eyes. You love the person, and you thought, a lot of us, I always thought, I knew my husband drank, but I thought, oh, well, I can help him sober up because I spent all my life having my mother sober up and she didn't get sober. So I had me a new one to work on. But anyway, we get naive. Family members are so naive about the disease, and we think that we can be an influence to help them. And so you have to process the grief and the loss of the marriage, the loss of companionship, the loss of maybe them being around your children. These are decisions you have to make if it is healthy for your children to be around a narcissistic parent. And then number 5 is redefine yourself. You're much more than a spouse of a narcissist. Redefine yourself. Go back to your dreams and goals of your early life, your early teen, late teens, early adult life, and redefine yourself, what you want out of life and what happiness would look like for you. And then get connected to other people. You know, I don't know if there are support groups for people who live with narcissists, but the thing about it, you know, and Al-Anon is for family members of alcoholics. And but you could go and sit and listen. It would be the same process, except I don't believe narcissists ever recover. Alcoholics do. Alcoholics change. Their personality changes if they stay in recovery. So redefine yourself, get connected to healthy people, find healthy people to connect with, and don't believe your spouse about how bad off and wrong you are. And then create a new future for yourself. Dream big for yourself and your children. And, you know, do your professional, you know, your therapy, your professional therapy work. You're not going to have to live in a therapist's office forever. You know, do your work and look at that it's okay for you to recover. And so I want to say this: long-term effects of narcissistic abuse is at its core is soul crushing. It crushes the very soul of the family, and there's many forms of abuse coming from the narcissist. Its purpose is to render the victim helpless and to serve the narcissist. When a narcissistic person is putting someone else down, it's all for their own good, and they have no regard for the other person. This is why now you'll find a lot of smart people and that are narcissists. And look at the professions if they're in. A lot of them are lawyers, or a lot of them are head of corporations. They have to get way up there in the top of the corporation so they can abuse people all the way down. And people are afraid of it. They're scared of it. But on the other hand, they admire them because these are hard workers. They push through everything and abuse people along the way. All boundaries are lost. The abuser who must be in total control breaks down every boundary. You know, you'll see, and I've seen this, I have worked with people that have come out of the corporate world and have a narcissistic boss. And they had given their life to that company, mainly because of that narcissistic boss. And they would come in here, you know, with addiction or whatever, but that would be one of the things. They had no boundaries because they'd given them up to a narcissistic husband or wife or a boss. And one by one, that's where one's control begins to slip and abuse intensifies. So that is what I have. It's not a pretty diagnosis to have. And I hate to tell you that there's not a lot of recovery for narcissists, because keep in mind, a true narcissist doesn't think there's anything wrong with them. It's you. If you would change, if you would do better, if you would clean the house better, if you would work harder, if you would do for them and blah, 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 compliment them, put them on a pedestal. Because if they've come from that childhood when someone, and probably the mother, put them on a pedestal, they're looking for you to keep them up there. So it's not a pretty subject to talk about. That's okay, Taylor, you're on. Share with us, if you will.
Wow.
Do you identify with any of this? Not personally, but
Yeah, this is a lot. Because it's been suggested that someone who is, actively in my life might be a narcissist, and I've resisted, applying that label to him because it's like, no, I would know. There's a good guy. And I just feel like I got hit over the head. And yeah, it's, I love how you talked about how the addicts and addiction and active addiction really mirror some of those narcissistic tendencies, because I can totally relate. And like, no wonder our house was a mess when we were together. Like we're two crazy people living together. And I'm grateful that, with the steps and sponsorship and support, I can get out of those narcissistic tendencies today. But this stuff is real, and it makes a lot of things make sense that didn't make sense. And there's just a lot of deprogramming to do about what is true and what's not. And I always thought that was my fault, because, the big book talks about being unable to differentiate the true from the false. But maybe it just wasn't all the addictions that were playing into that, unable to tell what reality was, and my place in a family system or whatever. So this was really good. I have a lot to talk to Jennifer about. She was excited you were doing this talk because she's ready to beat me over the head that I'm like, no, it's not like that. But no, this was really good, and it brought up a lot of grief because it just makes some things make sense, but it's hard to hear. And so thank you. I really appreciate it. And I'm so glad you're back on and doing these. You look great.
thank you. And another thing is, I believe this is why addicts, we all get up when we're talking, making a talk in any program, and we say, I'm a very grateful, recovering compulsive overeater, bulimic alcoholic. I don't know that any of us are really grateful for having the disease. I think what I'm grateful for is a way to treat it, and that I think can move on that other side. And this is a sad part of a person that has that narcissistic personality disorder. They don't know there's anything wrong with them. It's you. If you'd stop drinking, if you'd stop your eating disorder, if you would do this, if you would do that. So I hope you heard something. And have a 2-hour session with Jennifer. You probably need it. Thanks, Taylor.
You could do.
And I will say this, when you came to us, you were very beat down, and you are smart, you're brilliant, you're a wonderful mother. And I hope from this day forward, you'll never allow anyone to beat you down again. Amen. So, all right.
Amen.
Who's next?
Stephanie.
Stephanie.
Hello. Oh my
Good
goodness.
morning.
Thank you so much for this talk. I also am sitting here in tears. Just, it's been suggested to me so often that I am involved with it's been described as a covert passive aggressive narcissist. And I've read a couple of books on it. I had never heard the term gaslighting until I was given a book on it. And I literally thought I was losing my mind. I thought I was crazy. And I fell into alcoholism, which probably would have happened anyway because I'm an alcoholic. But I was so beat down that I literally did not know who I was anymore. And just listening to this talk, it's, I think I know the effects that this has had on me and on my family and my children, but I have a lot more to learn and a lot of healing to do. And I'm really going to dig into learning about this. And I was so grateful that Taylor shared the information on this Zoom today, because I really needed to be on here. So I just wanted to say thank you. And I really appreciate the information. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And, being an alcoholic, alcoholics, that qualifies you for Al-Anon.
Oh, I just got in it.
Great, great. Because you can apply the same thing to your
Mhm.
narcissist in your life. All right. Thanks,
Yes,
Stephanie.
thank you. Thank you so much.
You're
Katie?
quite welcome. Katie.
Good
Morning, Katie.
morning. Hi, Tennie. I'm so glad you're doing better.
Oh, thank you. I am too.
Such good information every time. I mean, I never think that I'm ever going to hear everything and know that I am not going to learn any new information. And then I'm just always amazed how, at the beginning, I wanted y'all to tell me everything and I wanted you to give me all the books and I was going to go through all of it and I was going to outline it and I was just going to get it all done. And thankfully, it doesn't work like that. And my brain and my body and my soul could only handle so much at a time. And I remember the first time hearing that I have narcissistic tendencies, or like the first time a narcissistic word was dropped to me about my eating disorder. And I was furious. And I was like, I don't even have any self-worth. Like, what are you talking about? And the person had to say, well, do you think about yourself and your food and your eating for more than 20 hours a day? And I'm like, well, yeah. And they're like, well, that's all self, and it shook me out of like, well, no, I'm just this broken person and you just don't understand. And if you knew, and all that crazy stuff. And when you brought up the piece about corporate, it was such a big piece of my story. I really thought if I could go be somebody and show everybody that I am whatever, then you all really don't know that I'm sick and I don't know what I'm doing and I'm scared and I'm in fear and all these things. And surrounding myself by people that operated that way, I did not believe that it would change me just by being around it all the time, that it would change my thoughts, my actions, my beliefs, whether I was doing, things that, other people were or weren't doing. Just being around it changed my thought process to the point that I really was only running on self all the time. And so when you all told me I had to stop thinking that way and start looking at the truth about what my diseases do, the people that I hijack with my emotions and my behaviors and my narcissistic ideas about control, that I think control is a good thing, that I'm just really attuned to what my children need or any of that other stuff. And that, left to my own devices, that's where my brain goes. But that there was a lot of kind of what Taylor was sharing and Steph was sharing. There was a lot that contributed to it, that my broken self just said, no, it was all me. It was all me. Nope, it was all me. And even now I know that was a way of me hiding from looking at my pain and my fears and everything I'd been through. It was easier just to be like, nope, it's all me, to touch that other stuff. And thankfully I stayed around long enough and I watched all of you all and I listened to the information that you have given us so freely. I am overwhelmed with gratitude that 3 of the most important people in my life right now are on this call and they're hearing this information that you have shared in my life a long time. And that the way this program works, that, as addicts, we hear it and we're like, nah, nope, nah. Glad it works for you, but that has nothing to do with me. And that slowly but surely, as we break through our traumas and we do our work, and we're willing to listen just a little bit more and say, maybe it does apply to my life. Maybe not across the board, but maybe there's some areas that, it's just a beautiful gift that it's all being passed down from what you started so long ago. And I shared with your daughters, when you were sick a couple weeks ago, like we're building this little wonderful village in Kentucky and we're trying to share this information. And it's been the freedom that I didn't necessarily get before coming to Texas and before spending all that time in Memphis. And so I'm just so grateful that you're here and that you keep doing what you're doing, and that all my friends and loved ones that I've met and haven't met are on this call. So thank you, Tennie.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. And you have passed it on, and that's what we have to do. We can't keep it if we don't give it away. We cannot keep recovery, and you keep giving it away. I love hearing you share. All righty, who's next? Megan, a Tennessee friend.
Hi. Well,
How
I
are
have
you?
my partner here. It's summer break now. There's Bodie. Can you see
Oh
him?
my goodness, isn't he growing up?
He
Good to
is.
see you. I have a picture of you when you were about 3. You look, you're growing up. It's good to see you, Bodie.
You
Yeah,
gave me the Hot Wheels set.
I did. You're so smart. You're gonna have to get your mama to bring you to West Texas to see Minnie, okay?
You want to do that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. He was learning today. So I'll be a little reserved today, but this just hits really close to home with the work that we did in December, and how quickly, how easily, with when we're not constantly working on our self-worth and our self-esteem and doing our own work, how quickly the narcissism that we live with can creep up on us, and that the gaslighting, those messages that are familiar, start to take hold. And then, I've talked about how that situation kind of became my higher power, because I just fell back into those old childhood patterns of growing up with narcissism. And if, talking about recovery being like a muscle and doing the work, and the muscle memory is there, but in living with active narcissism, where there is no choice to disengage in some capacity, how the impact, that really that's a family disease too, that the impact it can have on everyone in the household. So I've been looking forward to us talking about this topic. Thank you. It's good to
Thank
see
you.
you.
It's good
Love
to
you.
love you. Good to see you. Glad I got to spend a little time with you when I was in Nashville. Love
Me
you, Megan.
too. Love you too.
Anyone else?
David and Debbie.
David and Debbie. All righty.
Good morning. Thanks for all your words. Okay, so now we have a narcissist in our life. Could you give us 3 or 4 or 5 specific behaviors that we should practice going forward to keep the crazy at a minimum? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie. Yeah, thank you. All righty. Anyone else?
Amanda, do you still want to share?
Sure.
Okay. It's okay.
Thank you, Tennie, for broaching this subject. It's one that definitely needs to be addressed. I'm pretty sure that I live with a narcissist and can relate to a lot of what other people have said. I feel like I've become kind of a shell of who I was before in this journey. And I think it's so important. And I think something else to kind of research is, getting out of those situations, because a lot of people will say, just leave the situation, but it's not that easy for a lot of different reasons. So, and I'm so glad that you touched on, that while it's really difficult for them to heal and get help, it's not impossible if they'll do the work. I've seen changes happen that sometimes last, sometimes they don't, but I just wanted to thank you so much for sharing on this. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome, Amanda, and just keep doing what you're doing and take care of that baby boy. He is so sweet.
I will. Thank you so much.
You're a good mama. Okay, our time is almost up. One of the things I wanted to share is I had some things to do to, like get blood drawn yesterday and get my nails done, those important things, and get a haircut. And so my friend Misty and I went to eat lunch, and my top weight was 287 pounds, and I was an overweight child, teenager, young adult, overweight my entire life. And I have such a burden for people who are overweight. And I sit in that restaurant, and not shaming anyone, but just my heart. I couldn't even finish my lunch. And I'm not exaggerating, almost every person that passed our table was morbidly obese. And there was some 4 young girls that were sitting on a table at a table right by our booth. And they had on some shirts that they worked in the medical field. Every one of them were morbidly obese. And I sat there and I don't usually get in people's plates. I don't want anybody looking at mine, and I don't usually look at people's plates. But I was watching what those young women in their 20s were eating. I mean, piles and piles of food. And my thought is what are they trying to eat away? What are the feelings that they are trying to eat away? And it just saddened me. And I just came home grateful that I found a way through the grace of God and a lot of good help and Overeaters Anonymous and therapy and all, that I am in good recovery today for my eating disorder. But I've always had such a burden for anyone with any eating disorder, but primarily obesity and obese children and obese teenagers. So it's a subject that people do not want to talk about. And so what I want to say is there is a killer among us. There's a killer at large. And why is obesity in America the greatest threat? The greatest threat to our society today is obesity. And when will we start talking about it? When are we going to start talking about obesity? And obesity is the leading cause of death in America today. And I think it's time that I talk about it on here. I don't know that I've talked about obesity per se. I've talked about eating disorders, but it saddens me. I sit there, like I said, and watch, because I've been them. I know what it feels like to be a young teenager, a young adult, and could not keep from getting the food and eating the food. I don't care who's watching. Now, if they enjoy being overweight and their weight doesn't bother them, so be it. I mean, that's none of my business. But the ones that I want to visit with, and I hope we can get the word out, I want to talk with the ones that do not like living with the disease of obesity, and that they don't have to, how they can recover. I'll tell you, folks, if I can recover from obesity, anyone on the face of the earth can do it. I thought the secret to obesity was bulimia, and that's what almost killed me. So all eating disorders are fatal, left untreated. But I want to focus next week on obesity, and maybe that's more for me than for you. I don't know, but it saddens me, and it saddens me with children. We have more obese children in today's time than ever in the history of this country. So I've already, stopped sharing and gone to preaching. So join me next week. And if you have any thoughts or ideas about what you've done, and I'm looking at some people that I'm looking at my friend T there. If you want to know about diligent recovery from obesity, you want to talk to my friend T. And she's never given up her recovery. I mean, day by day, by day, by day, by day. And I hope you'll be with us, T, and I hope you'll share a little bit about your recovery. And, without saying much, you've talked about having obese friends that are dying from obesity and mental, and physical problems that's a direct cause from obesity. So join us next week. And if you know of anyone that might benefit from the topic, please invite them. And it's not fat shaming, it's none of that. And if people enjoy their body overweight, good for you. Just say your affirmations, love yourself. And I will tell you, that's where I had to start. I couldn't wait till I got a certain weight to start affirming my body. I had to start saying affirmations to myself when I weighed 287 pounds. And that did not come from a therapist. That did not come from treatment. That came from a sponsor in Al-Anon, not even OA, a sponsor in Al-Anon. She said, Tennie, if you don't start loving yourself, nothing's going to change. And one day she brought me a bottle of lotion and she said, I want you to start lotioning your body and on every part of your body, say an affirmation. I could hardly comb my hair because I had so much self-loathing. I didn't even want to look at myself in the mirror. So that was the beginning. And it's been, that was many years ago, but that woman helped me by helping me learn to love myself at 287 pounds. And it took a long time. So join us next week as we talk about this subject. And like I said, if you know anyone that might benefit from it, therapists, people who have the disease, join us as we talk about the killer at large in our United States. It's called obesity. See you next week.
Megan has her hand back up real quick.
Who did?
Megan?
Just
Megan?
really quick. Yes, Bodhi just wanted to share something with you.
All righty.
I say affirmations to myself too sometimes.
Good for you. And I know who taught you. Who taught you? Your mama did. Good for you. I hope you'll do 5 every day. I'm going to challenge you. Do 5 affirmations in the mirror every day. And
All
tell me about it next week, okay?
Okay.
Great. Love you.
Love
Bye,
you.
Brody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.